We're live.
We're live. All right, guys. We got a hell of a weekend ahead of us. Looking at UFC 221 in Perth, Australia. And we're going to dive into some other hot topics of MMA in this episode of episode 4 of Gringo Gossip.
Where do you guys want to start? You want to start? I think we should save maybe our picks and stuff, talking about maybe this weekend a little bit later. I want to talk about last Saturday night. What are your guys' takeaways from Belém, UFC Belém, Brazil?
A lot of people are crying foul on that decision. You, for instance, Davidson, have been real vocal about believing Anders won, and I agree with you, but I don't think it's as big of a robbery as you're making it out to be. I could have. It was close. Anders didn't really do much besides kind of trot forward and throw that overhand punch, and even then he didn't really have the level of output I would have liked to see.
I can definitely agree somewhat with the fact that I may have overreacted initially after seeing the initial fight. Just for anyone watching this right now, there's a couple things I'll say. It came back on Fox Sports 1. They did a rerun of the main card the other day, and I caught a little bit of the fight again. Absolutely, Eric Anders didn't pull the trigger a lot of the fight. I thought Machida won the first round for sure. I could have easily gave 2, 3, and 4 to to Anders, and then round 5 I feel like could have gone either way. But Anders was securing the takedowns. He got outstruck, but both of them were being you were both kind of getting the sense, round 3, round 4 would go by and you'd be like, okay, when are these guys going to put their foot on the gas? The only thing I have a problem with is the 49-46. That just makes no sense. That to me is that's what I could care less. If Machida would have had 2 48-47s on the scorecard, I would have, I'd have been like, okay, but you thought he won 4 rounds? If you could think, Nick, Corey, if you could pick the 4 rounds you think Machida could have won, like what? Like first and fifth, and then you got to pick 2 others? No, I don't know, man.
I thought, and you have to give Anders at least 2 rounds. You have
At
to.
least. At least.
I think you guys are both overlooking the simple fact that when a Brazilian fights in Brazil, they're automatically getting 4 rounds.
Oha.
Os.
Yes, that's a fact. That's just how it is.
Yeah, I thought it was Anders too, to be honest. It's like you kept saying too, Davidson, like we kept waiting. Neither of them really had a definitive moment for longer than maybe like 30 seconds at the most, but could have gone either way.
What I always find interesting is, after close decisions, I like to look on this app that I use and Corey uses as well, called Verdict. I'm going to show the camera here. They had the cool thing about this app is that the fans can vote like live for each round, and they gave the rounds that I thought you could have given to Machida. I think it says, I wonder if you can see how many people out of the out of the number of entries, somewhere in the high 900s. There were about 900 entries, and it was overwhelmingly 3 rounds to 2 for Eric Anders. Eric Anders taking 2, 3, and 4, and Machida winning 1 and 5, which is understandable. But 49-46, dog, what?
That's comparable to that judge who scored Canelo versus Triple G.
Adelaide Bird
Gave like 8 rounds to 12 to Canelo. It's like, I'm sorry. Or no, it was worse than that.
I'm pretty sure it was 118, 112.
Anyways, into the co-main event of UFC Belém.
Dear God.
Valentina Shevchenko, and I don't know what the bigger story is from this fight. Is just absolutely one of the most one-sided fights I've ever seen, or how just incompetent Yamasaki is as a referee. to let it go on as long as it did.
You know, Yamasaki's got this rap, which is like really unfortunate. That it's like, you know, he's been criticized for stopping fights too early, and he's been criticized for not stopping fights fast enough. He's no Mazzagatti, in my opinion, but I'll bet you Dana dislikes them both on an even playing field. Dana can say what he wants on Instagram and Twitter and blah, 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 and obviously his word carries weight, but at the end of the day, Dana White isn't the one that ever signed a Steve Mazzagatti or Mario Yamasaki check, and that's why these guys have hung around as long as they have. What did you guys think of Yamasaki's comments saying he allowed her to be a warrior?
Yeah, defending her warrior honor or whatever he said. I think he was just trying to cop himself out. It's like you said, there's too many instances now where fighters will come out and just start blowing smoke right after the decision gets called and the stoppage happens, and then they get the heat for it. I mean, Yamasaki's been around long enough to be able to make definitive professional decisions, but in this case, like you guys said, is just he was trying to find a cop out. It was unbelievable.
Okay. I can appreciate one thing, and that's the transparency. And at least Yamasaki comes out and answers the questions and issues a statement. Most of the time, when there's controversial things like this, you never hear from the referee, the judge, the commission. So I can appreciate it on that level. But with that being said, you're going to let her be a warrior? It's not your job to do, your job is to save her from herself. These people that get in this octagon are too tough for their own good.
Yep.
It's his job to get them out of there before they take too much damage. And, I mean, Shevchenko could have just kept pounding her, but she decided to go for the rear naked. And Yamasaki missed the first tap.
Yeah, I was going to say, he didn't even see the first tap.
Yeah, twice. I mean, it was, in Dana White's words, it was disgusting. Like, you just can't allow that much damage to. I mean, it was such a one-sided fight, and I didn't like his comment about the warrior thing. Like, obviously, he's a warrior. You are supposed to protect her from herself.
My biggest takeaways from this is obviously, you know, I'm watching this in my apartment with a buddy of mine who is like a casual MMA fan. You know, he came over, we had a couple beers, we were watching the fights. Doesn't know, like, you know, but him and I are both watching this. And there's two things. One, if you go back, I went back after the fight was over. I prompted to go back and look at her open workout videos. You know, there is just there was a huge red flag or a huge sign that was staring the UFC right in the face that this is reckless matchmaking, if we're being honest. If you watch her open workout video, man, like, she is just not on a technical level that a lot of these girls, even in the UFC, are right now, let alone Shevchenko. Another big takeaway I had from the night, and I want to get your guys' opinion, is so the women's flyweight official, like, UFC rankings, they've started being integrated into their official rankings. Shevchenko was ranked the #1 bantamweight going into the fight. Where do you think she is right now?
Just to say she's #1 flyweight.
She went from non-ranked to the #1 contender in 233 to 3 strikes. My question is, if you're Nico Montano or Nico Montano's family, for those watching who may not be totally familiar, Nico Montano is the girl who won the inaugural flyweight title for the UFC by winning the title on Tough. What do you think Nico Montano and her camp is thinking right now? Because the second that fight is made, what do you think Shevchenko is? -950, -1,000? I would try to convince her to vacate the belt. I'm not kidding.
Hey, we saw this before when Carla Esparza won that 115-pound title, and then the champion came in her very first title defense and smoked her. I haven't seen this Nico Montano fight. I missed that season of Tough. But
Only thing you missed was one of Sajara's head kicks. That's it.
I have a feeling it's going to be a pretty easy night for Valentina.
Corey, what do you think, man? I think this is reckless. I think it's suicide.
I mean, you guys have already said everything that I would have said. It's just Carlos Esparza was the first thing that I thought of too. I mean, a lot of these tough fighters, they don't have the experience that these now seasoned females have. You know, they've been around for a couple of years. If it looks like, it's just like you said, in the open workouts and tough, everything else, they just don't have the prestige or even really like the clout or like a following at all. You know, it just seems like they're coming out of, they're just coming out of gyms that you've never heard of. They're just fighting in garages, whereas now these girls are like, you got Joanna Jacek sharing a gym with the likes of Robbie Lawler and stuff like that. Even like Paige Van Zant they're at Team Alpha Male for the most part, and just places like that where the rest of these girls, they just don't have that sort of I guess I don't know, the sense of belonging necessarily, or, you know, like trainers or people within the organization that really know what they're doing. They've never been on that level of stage before. They're just not ready.
Yeah. To sum that up, like the depth of the women's divisions just isn't there. Like the highest level girls are, you know, where they are. And then, you know, 6, 7, 8, 9 through 15, there's a pretty big fall off.
Yeah. If I will say one thing in contrast to that, though, I think the 115-pound division isn't that bad. Obviously, 125 just started. The bantamweight division, I think that's the most held up division in the UFC right now. I did read today, though, they're thinking Nunes, Raquel Pennington in May in Brazil. However,
Nunes and Cyborg, but
yeah, we'll get to that. Go ahead, Corey.
No, I was just chanting that you will die.
You know, I mean, that's the only logical choice for the UFC in terms of putting a title fight on that card. That's literally that's the only Brazilian champion you have that isn't booked right now. I mean, to me, and the UFC has shown recently, in my opinion, and Luke Thomas said this on SiriusXM Radio, I didn't mind the idea of why not make Frankie and Ortega a 5-rounder and then degrade it to a fight night card. Not a big deal. Get some Fox Sports 1 revenue, important Fox Sports revenue in a year of a television deal. And there's some great fights on that card that you could showcase on Fox Sports 1. You got Sean O'Malley, Arlovsky Struve, Ketlin Vieira and Kat Zingano. Dodson Munoz was rescheduled for that card. Bobby Green, Beneil Dariush. I mean, that's a lot of really good fights that you could put on Fox Sports 1. And I think by just booking Cyborg against, again, like with Shevchenko Cachoeira, we're here again with a dominant champion and or a dominant fighter facing someone who would be trying to get rid of their octagon jitters for the first time. And they're fighting Chris Cyborg for the belt. You know, I mean, kudos to them for saving the card, and I know they tried to do other main events, but it all just seems a bit desperate.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. I mean, I like to believe that Dana, when he says, you know, best year ever, like for the company, like last year and stuff, but like, I would feel that those words would carry a little more weight if, you know, they didn't seem so desperate. Booking this fight and throwing Cyborg Nunes onto the back burner, which is a fight Dana personally said on multiple times he wanted to make. It just, I don't know if it's because the card's in Vegas. I don't know what it is. It just seems desperate as hell to me.
I think in a perfect world, they wouldn't add that Cyborg fight and have the main event of Edgar Ortega on FS1, like you're saying.
Yeah.
But I think it's such a complicated process to cancel the pay-per-view, to you know, settle all the deals with Fox, you know,
100%.
Commercial planned so far in advance. But yeah, what else do we have going on?
All I know is I think that'd be the best fight night card of the year so far. I don't know. That card in Austin next weekend. We'll be double dipping for our predictions next weekend. The Bellator. I suggest Nick, or if you haven't seen the main card for Mitrione Nelson 2 next week, take a look at that main card. It's pretty, not like 192, but it's a pretty good main card. Remember that dude that had that flying knee to Taiwan Claxton?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he's on that card. One of the Pitbull brothers is fighting Derek Campos, the one that fights at the one that's not the featherweight champion. I can never remember which one's which. That's a pretty decent card. That Austin card too, if I could talk briefly about it, is nice too. But let me blow your mind though. When Marcin Tybura, Derek Lewis, underdog favorite, who would you think is the favorite, and who would you think is the underdog in that fight?
I gotta say, the Black Beast is the favorite.
I thought so too.
No question.
You think so too, Corey?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah, I would have believed so too, and I checked today, and it's not the case. He's he's not a huge underdog, but I was shocked to see. I was thinking about making him as my lock, like looking forward, but he's plus 120 underdog going against Tybura in his home state of Texas. He's a plus 120 underdog against Marcin Tybura.
Oh wow! I mean, it makes a little bit of sense. He's coming off that back injury that
Yep.
you never know is going to be fully healed or not. And Tybura looked pretty good, going all 5 with Verdun. But Black Beast is in this, so I think he sleeps him.
Absolutely. I saw him on Helwani's show today talking about some Viagra shit that he's starting to get ready to release. He's so funny. That'll be a good main card in Austin next Sunday night. It's a special Sunday night fight night. One of my most notable up-and-comers, I've been tweeting about him like crazy lately. A guy by the name of Curtis Millender will make his UFC debut on the main card against Thiago Alves. Yes. He's won his last 3 fights in a row by head kick. Pretty interesting stuff. Briefly, if
Northcutt on that card as well.
Yeah, he opens up the main card. Trying to think. They got this random fight at 115 pounds on the main card too.
Just
of 2.
This is Livihinha Souza. One picture for her.
Yeah, I've never heard of either of them. Have you guys?
I've heard of Jessica Aguilar, but I couldn't tell you what she even looked like.
I think Souza is a newcomer. But real quick, before we put what we were talking about to rest, my other question I really wanted to ask regarding the whole women's flyweight thing. David Shaw, the vice president of like foreign going elsewhere outside of America shit for the UFC, said that if we're looking towards when it's possible Shevchenko and Montano would be booked, and what would make the most sense, there's a fight night card, I believe the week before the Brazil pay-per-view, if not the week after, in Chile. The Octagon will hit Chile for the first time in May. And they said that could be a potential landing spot for that fight. I think it makes sense.
Yeah, I like that fight to headline a free card.
Yeah, offer your sacrificial lamb to the gods on free television. Jesus. Not looking good for other fighters in that division. Real quick, what I want to look back on overall, we all went 4-2 on the main card last week in Brazil. Couple swings could have made people 5-1, but we're not going to talk about that. Overall, that was the best. I'm keeping track through everyone, combining all of our records for each one. We had the highest winning percentage on that card. We were in agreement with a lot of them. And now we move forward. I think last week me and Nick both got 9 and Corey got 8, so we were all right there. 5-fight pay-per-view card this weekend for the first time in Western Australia. Before we dive into our picks, I'm really tired of hearing people talking shit about this card and just destroying it. Like, I think there's a lot of interesting matchups on this card, and I think it could end up being a fantastic event. What do you guys think overall looking at it?
Even deep down into the prelim, yeah. Deep down into the prelims, even like a lot of times, I won't recognize half the names on the prelims anymore just because they're a bunch of like 6-1 guys, and they'll throw some old heads in there that are like 28-12s and guys like that. But this is good, like you said, Davison. This is a lot of potential.
Yeah, you got fights like you got Teruto Ishihara and Ross Pearson fighting on the Fight Pass prelims. You got a really juicy matchup between UCA Formiga and Ben Wynn.
I love that fight. If I could correct you though, Ishihara is fighting Jose Quinones.
Fighting each other. They're just both fighting on the
word. Okay. I didn't know that was what you're saying.
And then you guys' boy Aduncia, the future John Jones.
Dude, I think he could be my favorite fighter, and he hasn't even stepped in the octagon yet.
Hey, the boy Wilkinson is a hometown guy.
He is. Very strange.
There's a bunch of hometown heroes on this card.
Yeah, there's an Australian in every fight, except obviously since Whitaker pulled out of the main event. You got to think that stings though for the fans in Perth, and obviously no one probably is more upset about it than Robert Whitaker himself. But you got to think that hurt the marketability and the overall aura of the night probably tremendously, if you ask me. I think Whitaker Rockhold is a great fight. I think Romero Rockhold is a great fight. I think there are certain things though in Romero's game, and we'll obviously dive into the main event here shortly, but I think there are certain things initially looking at it in Romero's game that play right into Luke Rockhold's hands. He is 40. Granted, I'm not underestimating an inch of Yoel Romero. What's up?
Who's saying he's 40?
He is 40. 50. Yeah, no, that's what I was saying. Like, I mean, he is a terrifying specimen. Oh my God. I've been watching him do interviews in Spanish this weekend. He's been telling nothing but Bible stories. You know, he's talking about Abraham and Simon and it's like, you know, he's the soldier of God. Like, dude, that dude is scary as hell. I will say though, like I said, you know, 40. I'm not saying because he's 40, his cardio will be depleted, but I mean, I'm saying because we've seen in the past, sometimes going into the later rounds, he begins to fade.
Before we go too hard into that, should we start at the bottom of the card and work our way up? Or...
Yeah, I got carried away. That's just a great fight, dude. That's such a great fight.
All right.
What are you looking at? In terms of, I know Teruto Ishihara is your boy. Didn't he fight Gray Maynard a short time ago?
Yeah, he had a lackluster performance against Gray Maynard. Maynard was able to implement his wrestling, which is about the only way he's going to win these days.
Right.
Yeah, Teru, I like that guy. Team Alpha Male guy. I'm not the biggest fanboy like Corey, but they cool.
Is he Team Alpha Male?
Yes.
I didn't know that. Ross Pearson and Hirota is an interesting fight to me. That fight is going to be a stand-up trade. See what you got.
Is this Hirota guy? Is this the dude that stands like with his feet centered? You know what I'm talking about? He blocks punches with his face, guy.
I don't know if I feel like multiple. I feel like multiple guys from Japan kind of do that, though.
Yeah, it's confusing.
It's that Pride shit, man. I don't know what it is because, you know, back in the days of Pride, they're, you know, getting head kicked by Crow Cop on steroids. Those guys weren't afraid of anything. And Hirota's pretty old. Did you guys by chance? I remember the only time I've never seen one of his fights, but the only thing I remember about him was he had to move up to lightweight for this fight because when they were fighting in Tokyo in September, He came into the weigh-ins. I don't know if you guys saw the videos, but he couldn't even stand on the scale. Like he was about to fall off the scale, and he's like 7 pounds over, and they scrapped the fight.
Oh, was this in ONE FC?
No, it was in the UFC. It was at the St. Preux Okami
Oh, okay.
card.
This
That was Hirota's last scheduled fight.
was that at 145 pounds or 155 pounds?
It was at 145, so now he moved up to 155.
Now moving up, and I'm glad to see that Pearson's back fighting at 155. He had at 145, and I just think the older you get and you're cutting more weight, kind of like a Gray Maynard, that's never good.
We give Gray Maynard some shit. Ross Pearson, though, like, you know what you're gonna get out of Ross Pearson. He's that tough Brit, come in looking for a scrap, dude. Some of his wins, though, like he's beat Paul Felder. He beat
He has a nuts track record.
He beat Edson Barboza. He beat I mean, to be honest, standing out, that's about it. But like, I don't know, man. Dude's tough. You know what you're gonna get.
All right, let's waste no more time and get started with our fight picks for the main card here. Starting off with the home countryman Tyson Pedro versus Saparbek Safarov. Who you guys got?
Corey, you can go first.
All right, I got Pedro getting a second round knockout, and that's my lock. At that, he's just far more superior.
No, every time Tyson Pedro finishes one of his fights, breaks out one of these hats. He calls it his dead cousin hat. I saw that in an interview today. He came into the UFC with a lot of hype. Tyson Pedro did. Was 6-0, and I'm pretty sure his last fight he lost by decision to Ilir Latifi. Shows you how tough Ilir Latifi is. Pedro has a very distinct height and reach advantage on him. But obviously, everybody takes losses in this game. Saparbek Safarov is not to be overlooked, though. While I do say that, ironically enough, Tyson Pedro is also my lock. Believe he's the second biggest favorite on this card. And Corey, what round did you have?
Second
round KO. Yeah, I don't think that fight's gonna see the bell. What do you think about that fight, Nick Dietrich?
We're in unanimous agreement. Pedro's also my lock, and I got him by first round KO. I think he electrifies the crowd and celebrates with his countrymen. Moving on, we got another Australian, Jake Matthews, fighting, forgive my pronunciation, Li Jinglang.
Jingliang is how you say it.
Very good. Beautiful.
I only know that because I watched the Shanghai main card. I like butt fuck o'clock.
See, I like Jake Matthews a lot. Like, he's been around for a little bit now, but like he just hasn't found his home. He switched to lightweight for a while. Now he's back at welterweight. He's a hometown kid in Australia, but he's been jumping divisions. And I mean, I don't really know what to expect out of him anymore. I think Lee's riding a 2-fight win streak, isn't he?
3, I believe. 2-fight knockout in the first round streak. Because Frank Camacho, the guy that just fought in Charlotte.
Yeah.
Dude, every single time that guy fights, it's fight of the night. All 3 of his fights in the UFC have been knockout 3-round complete wars that have been fight of the night. And that was Ying Liang's. I'm pretty sure that was Ying Liang's first in his 3-fight win streak. He's knocked out his last 2 guys. Who you got, Corey?
I got Zhili Yang. I think it's going to go to decision, though. I think it's going to go to distance. I don't really know what to expect out of either of these guys, so I'm going to play it safe.
I agree. I got Jing Liang by decision. Tough. I want to pick the Australian kid, but I think Jing Liang's a really solid guy. and he could potentially be a ranked guy in this division. We'll see.
I think you know how whenever you graduate high school and you get the yearbooks and everybody's like most likely to blah blah blah, or like best smile. I would say Ying Liang every year needs to win smile most resemblance of Chip Skylark. Have you seen that dude's face? It's just a big like this everywhere he goes. I mean, dude, it's like I don't know if I should feel bad or if it's like I don't know, man, but it's like dude is grinning everywhere he goes. And I think he carries it into the octagon, ironically and humorously enough. He looked when I saw him fight in the co-main event against, I believe it was Zach Otto in Shanghai right before Bisping and Gastelum. He looked so poised in fighting in front of his family for the first time in Shanghai, where he had all the reasons to have nerves. But then Jake Matthews, man, I really like his move back up to welterweight. I think that'd be a draining cut for a guy his size to go all the way down to 155. Where I do think Matthews will hold the advantage is I think he's a little bit better at submissions.
Yeah, he's a black belt, but I mean, Lee still he has his brown belt in jiu-jitsu too, so I mean, he can still hold his own.
Yeah, no, totally. Nothing to take away from Lee. I just think if we're giving someone just a slight edge, I would give that to Jake Matthews. And stand corrected for a couple of us now that I look at Ying Liang. He's on a 4-fight win streak. He's won 4 in a row. Yeah, though. Other one, he's got Zach Otto, Frank Camacho, Bobby Nash, and Anton Zafir. So, I mean, not the biggest names, but 3 of them are knockouts.
Solid wins. So who do you got in that, Corey? Jake Matthews? Oh, I'm sorry, Davidson.
I have Ying Liang as well.
Yeah.
I think that this was the toughest fight to pick on the main card. This fight, I mean, I don't know. That and Hunt and Blades could be tied, but this is a great fight. This is a really, really close fight. Jimmy Smith said this was his fight to watch on the main card. He'll be making his commentary debut this weekend. I like Ying Liang by decision as well. We're all 3 unanimously choosing that, but I would not be surprised to see it go the other way. This would be a great fight.
Absolutely. All right, moving along. We got Cyril, the silverback Asker, looking not in the best shape.
Yeah.
Ty Bam Bam Tuivasa. Okay. What do you guys think?
Bam Bam's that dude.
Dude, he's hilarious, bro.
He's awesome. He's hilarious. He has so much charisma. I think all of his finishes are in the first round.
Yep.
He's an absolute
flying knee.
Dude, he's so ferocious. He's so tenacious. I'm gonna ride the wave on this one with my pick. I think he's gonna get another first round knockout. I love him.
Nick, go ahead, my man.
I like Ty as well, but I'm gonna take him by a 3rd round TKO. I think the fight's gonna last a little bit, and you're gonna see some tired heavyweights in there, and Tuivasa's gonna be able to get him out of there in the 3rd.
Dude, in Tuivasa's last fight, he fought in Sydney, which is basically home territory for like him, Tyson Pedro, and Mark Hunt. If you guys aren't aware, Tyson Pedro and Tai Tuivasa do a podcast together. It's hilarious, man, dude. These guys are funny as hell. Really charismatic. Pretty good training partners. Mark Hunt, Tyson Pedro, and when Mark Hunt is in that gym and Tuivasa. But that flying knee in his last fight against Rashad Coulter, I've never seen a guy his size fly into the air like that and land such a powerful knee right on the button.
Yeah, it was so precise and so explosive.
Dude, he impressed me a lot. He's the biggest favorite on this card. This will be the 3rd fight in a row. We unanimously agree. However, we are all in disagreement on the round. Corey has it going in the 1st. I have it ending in the 2nd. Nick has it ending in the 3rd.
All right. Moving on to a very intriguing matchup between Curtis Blades and Mark Hunt. I'm looking forward to this one. Took me a while to kind of come up with my pick. there's a couple different ways it can go, but I think Blades is gonna be able to do what he needs to do and stay on the outside, move. His jab looked incredible in his last fight. He's going to be enjoying nearly a 9-inch reach on Mark Hunt.
Oh
So
yeah.
I think he's going to win a decision. Hunt, I believe, will have his moments. Might rock Blades, once or twice, but I think the story of the fight is going to be Curtis Blades keeping him on the end of his jab and sticking and moving.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. That being the key to Curtis Blades' attack, using the reach advantage and trying to close the distance as best he can against, obviously, I don't think anyone on the planet is overlooking the power of the hands of Mark Hunt. In the article I wrote for our blog earlier this week, when I outlined the 10 best fights of this month, there was a stat that I became aware of that I'm going to pull up that should really go into, because people are going to go into this fight, who's Curtis Blades? There's a crazy statistic I came across regarding Curtis Blades. So Curtis Blades made his UFC debut in Chicago a couple years ago. Do either of you guys know who he fought first? His first UFC fight?
No.
Was it Ngannou or was that a different one?
It was Ngannou. The doctor stopped it after the second round. He hasn't lost since. Talking about Curtis Blades. And Ngannou's opponent since the Curtis Blades fight. Curtis Blades lasted 10 full minutes, and he really wasn't finished. It was the doctors waved off. I'm reading right here. Francis Ngannou's next 4 opponents combined to last only 6 minutes, 45 seconds. Wow. So if Curtis Blades can, hang around that long with a guy that a lot of people can't, and Mark Hunt, everybody knows his game plan going into every fight. He's going to look to knock him out. Such a great matchup, though. A wrestler versus knockout. This one was tough, too. However, Mark Hunt, the underdog on this card, he's going to be my upset. I like the energy of him fighting at home. I think he's going to use the quote-unquote 2 camps to his advantage, and I think he's going to get it done in the final frame, 3rd round knockout of Curtis Blades.
Yeah, I thought both of y'all were on the Blades train. I thought I was gonna have to flip the script, but I'm on the same page as you, Davidson. Like, Mark Hunt's one of the last of a dying breed. He's an OG, and he's fought from underneath people his entire career. His entire game plan is looking to slip those little. As soon as they come in for that jab, he's gonna slip in that uppercut, and I feel like that's how he's going to catch him. And honestly, I think he's going to do it early too. I think he's going to do it in the second round. I think Blades still isn't quite ready. It's like that stat that you just read off is unreal. Because I like just putting that into perspective, but keeping in mind,
it's just about his chin, though,
Yeah, it's crazy, man. Like, Mark Hunt's ability to just put people out with just one, like, he doesn't need to sit in an exchange. All he needs is that one look, and I feel like that's what's going to happen in the second round.
So that is your upset. I won't. Okay, I was assuming before we got to the main event. I will say this also about the fight. This is Mark Hunt's 43. You got to start to think, when Father Time is going to come knocking. It's the heavyweight division, though. Obviously, you can get away with quite a few things in the heavyweight division that you probably couldn't get away with in others. But Nick hit it right off the bat. Right, the first thing he said, I think, is going to be the key to watch is how Curtis Blades uses that jab and how well Curtis Blades' striking has improved. If he goes out there and tries to only take him down and not really strike on the feet with him at all, obviously it's going to depend on the success of the takedown, and Mark Hunt is not an easy guy to bring to the canvas. So many interesting things about that fight. That's a great fight.
Indeed. And yeah, Blades, I thought he looked leaps and bounds better in his last fight.
Yep.
Which got stopped by what happened in that?
That was against Olynyk at Madison Square Garden. What did happen? can't remember. I can't remember exactly what happened.
I can find out here.
Yeah, I think we're all like looking it up at the same time.
Okay, we got. Yeah. Okay. So it was just a doctor stoppage. I remember Olenek kind of quit in that one. I was
Yeah.
getting that one confused because I believe in the next bout there was a no contest because of a what happened here?
One of
Yes,
Blade's fights.
Walt Harris was DQ'd for that illegal
Yeah.
kick, if you remember correctly.
Yeah, yeah. I didn't know you were talking about another no contest on that card because Curtis Blades has a no contest on his record too for smoking the green. He got popped from the marijuana metabolites.
Trains in Denver, if I'm not mistaken. So
Yeah, I
you have
think
to.
that was
It's an elevation fight team. This is what we do. We get lifted.
absolutely. Yeah, USADA. Yeah, you hear that, USADA? Let's try to be a little easier about that. It's mostly those pricks in Nevada that are tough about that shit, though, man. Like coming down on Nick Diaz for just trying to get stoned with a brother. I don't know.
We could spend the whole podcast talking about marijuana law and justice, but
Oh man. Oh, that would be an interesting one. We got to pick a main event though, guys. What do we think? Such a great fight.
I really like this one. Um, my thing about this fight is Romero, as always, is going to be explosive as ever in the first few rounds. We'll see if he can catch Luke. Uh, Luke's looked a little bit vulnerable in his last two bouts, obviously getting knocked out by Bisbing and then catching the hands from Branch there.
Yeah, he
But
did.
I see, especially on a 4 week notice, Yoel has always kind of struggled with his cardio going past the third round. Um, and I think with a guy like Rockhold, who just seems to get stronger as the fight goes on, look at his Jacare and Weidman. I think that Luke is eventually going to be able to stop him in the later rounds. I'm going with a fourth round TKO, and I think that eventually the fight's going to hit the floor, and Luke is going to take that top position like he does to everybody, and finish the fight with some strikes.
You sounded like Rockhold right there when you said that. Rockhold's like, I'm gonna take him to the ground. I'm gonna impose my will. I'm gonna break him. You're just like, gee. Corey, what you got, man?
Yeah, Nick, you totally stole my thunder on that one. My comparison in this fight is it's gonna be exactly like Hulk versus Iron Man. Like you got one dude who is just an absolute tank, supernatural, everything. Just his dynamics, the way he just throws his arms around and everything. It just looks like you're never really gonna have an opening or anything else. And Luke's vulnerability and arrogance and cockiness it makes things very, very, very interesting and unpredictable. But it's like you said, 4 weeks notice. Romero's probably not nearly as prepared as he should be. Rockhold's one of those dudes, and I thought it was super funny too because I kept saying like, I hate Luke Rockhold. Honestly, I can't stand him as a person. I can't stand him as a fighter, and I love Yoel Romero, and I want to see him be successful. But just when Luke was in Branch's corner, and you could hear his coaches yelling from across the octagon, like what? And he just gave him like a settle down. I got this, and I was just astonished at that because I thought at that point he was faded, he was gone. So I think that since that Bisping knockout, he's obviously come back down to earth. Just like Tony Stark when he fights with his technologies and everything else, man, he's gonna pick up pieces as he goes, and he's gonna last, and he's gonna get a fourth round TKO as well. I agree with you, Nick.
Yeah, I mean, in my article I wrote this past week for our blog, I kind of went pretty in depth on quite a few fights, and then I got to this one. This is my number one fight to look for this month. I think by far this is the best fight of the month. on any card. You know, it's very, very intriguing. And, you know, we talked about the cardio and, you know, don't overlook the stool, too. We saw in the Tim Kennedy fight that stool might be an opponent of Yoel Romero's as well. Being realistic, you could have put Whitaker against Rockhold. You could have done Whitaker Romero, too. You could have done – I mean, dude, I think those three with Jacare wanting something to prove – right underneath them, I think those three are clearly the three best middleweights in the world. And that's, you know, has to be true because Jacare has lost to all three of them. There are so many close calls in this fight. I think for the first time, though, we, as a panel, have a unanimous agreement all the way across the board. Corey, you had fourth round TKO as well, right?
Yeah, man.
Yeah, I'm with you guys. I have Luke Rockhold winning the UFC interim middleweight title as well by TKO in the fourth round. Yeah, like you said, Nick, the top position is going to be very key for Rockhold. Once he gets Romero in those spots that, you know, Yoel isn't going to want to be in. Can't pull an Eric Anders and sit there and be patient. And I don't think Rockhold has any of that in his DNA, and I don't think Romero has any of that in his DNA. Yeah. My biggest thing, though, about this fight is what will happen if it goes to the ground. You know, both guys are so good on the ground.
And something to be said, I mean, to hold Yoel Romero in any position is pretty much humanly impossible.
Just about.
So I think any of the ground exchanges might just be like a quick wrestling get up.
Yeah, it'll be more scrambled
until the later rounds when Yoel is a little bit more fatigued. That's when I think you might see Rockhold be able to get to his back or get to them or stay on top in the mount position like he loves to do. But it's going to be crazy. You know, sort of a technical thing to look at in this fight is Rockhold has a lot of trouble against guys who fight orthodox and throw that left hook. A lot
of good point.
And both of these guys in the southpaw stance, you know, Romero's going to have to throw that overhand left, you know, to catch Luke on his right side, that right hand he likes to keep down. So it's a lot more distance to cover than just like a check left hook type of thing. And you know, Romero, one of his favorite techniques is obviously the flying knee. And it's tough to do that on a guy that's not shooting in on you like Chris Weidman, for example.
I mean, yeah, I think we were all thinking Weidman immediately.
Yeah, so we're gonna see. It's an interesting contrast in styles, and I think it's gonna be a great fight.
Yeah, you know, and if I could say one more thing about this fight, you know, if you're not a casual MMA fan, obviously, and this is pretty much common sense, you would believe, and it's true, that people who aren't familiar with combat sports or boxing, like any type of combat sport, don't know why I said or, like to see action, you know, on the feet. You know, when guys are watching the UFC and haven't watched any before, you know, when the grappling begins, you got casual fans, you know, won't really, you know, figure out, you know, he's getting underhooks, like, oh, he's trying to go for a submission right here. Oh, they're in the clinch. Like, you know, however, that's where this fight is going to be won 100%, in my opinion, is who is going to have the wrestling advantage. Obviously, Yoel Romero, the better wrestler, obviously Olympic medalist, but Luke Rockhold, an incredible grappler. You know, his jiu-jitsu is amazing. And once he gets on that mount, you know, it doesn't matter how hard you can knock him out or almost knock him out in the first round like David Branch did. He can come right back to the second round.
To give Rockhold credit in that regard, too, I mean, like, let's not forget he trains at AKA. He's dealing with Habib. He's dealing with DC. He's dealing with Kane. He's giving them rounds. He's pushing heavyweight and some of the most –
I will say not lately, though. That's also interesting about this fight.
He has been training in Florida.
Yeah.
I think a fantastic training partner to emulate Romero. He's been training a lot with Kamaru Usman.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up. Usman made the trip to Perth.
Yeah. Saw that on the embedded.
That's a hell of a training partner to have.
Yeah.
And that's perfect. Henry Hooft, his corner is insane. He's got Javier Mendez, Henry Hooft, and Bob Cook all in his corner. Sheesh. That's a pretty stacked corner. But yeah, no, I think that's going to be very interesting to see as well. You got to, no matter how this fight ends up, or I mean, you could say it like this: if Yoel Romero ends up winning this fight, you could say that maybe a lot of people in the MMA world are going to ask themselves, would it have been different if Rockhold had that full camp with guys like Khabib? I mean, obviously Usman's no slouch. I'm not taking anything away from him, but Corey, I'm glad that you said that. He's in the doghouse with DC and Khabib and Kane. That's AKA. It's they are what they are, and I think it's going to be interesting to see. Do we know if I think the David Branch fight was out of Henry Hooft's camp? Am I right?
Yes, that was his first fight training exclusively with Henry Hooft. He didn't even have Bob Cook or any of the AKA guys in his corner for that one. It was Henry Hooft and I'm not sure who else.
Yeah, if we can say anything about this card though, man, like I like the card top to bottom. I think it's one of the better prelim cards we've ever seen. Seen recently, because you kick off the prelims and you got to imagine the winner of that Formiga Ben Win fight is going to be putting themselves in prime position to chase for a title shot by the end of the year. Formiga being the highest ranked guy that hasn't had a shot at DJ.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that they solidify themselves to, at the very least, be put into a #1 contender fight with an impressive win.
100%. Maybe with a Cejudo, I don't know. I was in Detroit for Cejudo's last fight, and that was by far the most boring fight on the entire card.
You will not let that go.
Dude, I mean, yeah, he executed his game plan perfectly. I mean, he did. Like, he went out there and did whatever he wanted, but it was just, Sergio Pettis flopping around like a flounder on the ground for 3 rounds straight. He didn't know what to do.
Right.
Another fight I like on that prelim card too, real quick, is Alexander Volkanovski and Jeremy Kennedy.
Yeah. Volkanovski's a dude.
Both of those guys have won 3 in a row. That's a fight. And then you got I didn't even know until this card was made that there's 2 Dong Hyun Kims. I guess there's 2 Dong Hyun Kim.
Very similarly spelled.
That threw me off too. I had to
take and Dong Hong Kim or something like that.
Well, it's the one that not the one that fought Colby Covington. It's the other one. They're on the featured prelim, and I think that's the least interesting prelim out of the 4, to be honest with you. I like the other 3 all a lot better. I can't wait for Adesanya's debut, man. He's the truth.
All right, with that being said, I think we've covered everything. You guys got anything else you want to say?
Can't wait.
I'm excited. I get to watch it with Jaron, so wish me luck, Nick.
Oh, hell yeah. You got to buy him dinner, too?
Yeah, I'll probably have to take him to it and back home afterwards, so
Weigh-ins are tonight, by the way. Weigh-ins are tonight at 10 p.m.
I was wondering when it was going to be because of the time difference.
They do the ceremonial and the live one. Like, they do the ceremonial and the official combined. It's like when they step on the scale, it's for real.
Oh, yeah. All right. We're out. Episode 4 in the books.